Josh, coming into the final round, it's down to three of you. If at the start of the season somebody would have said to you, who would you predict as a final three at Brands Hatch, would you have said the three of you currently, or would you have thought there may have been some different people in the mix?
Most certainly would have thought Tommy. He'd finished out the year last year strong, and I even said a couple of years ago that I expected him to be in the top six, and he had a poor year. So I've always had high expectations of Tom, but Scott, his level is been proven in Grand Prix and so on. But we've seen a lot of riders come from other series and come to BSB and not really settle in. So as much as I was expecting Scott's quality as a rider to be there, it was sort of like it could go either way. But yeah, so to the best description, I would have expected those two to be there or thereabouts.
BY's Ducati has been the team to beat this year in reality, and Ducati previously, in the years that you've been fighting for the championship, has always been the opposition. How has it felt to have moved to Ducati, and how much have you enjoyed the experience this year?
For the latter part of the year, I've kind of forgotten about the past so much. It feels like I've been there for a long time. But the initial move was probably more even last year when I decided to contact the team and negotiations were in place. It was kind of a bit strange then, but most of this year has felt quite normal. The team have just gone about their business and trying to continue their performance at the top level, and they've kind of offered me as much as they can and as much support as possible to get the job done. So it's felt really quite natural to be there now.
The season started with, by your standards, a disastrous weekend at Silverstone, and then it bounced back in the opposite direction with a double win at Alton Park. How would you summarise the first part of the season?
The first round was quite disappointing, obviously. New to the team, new bike, high expectations, and then two non-finishes was, and not through any fault of my own, was quite difficult pill to swallow. But I wasn't disheartened or anything like that. I knew that over the course of the year, having it been so early, it would have been easy to recover that margin lost. So I wasn't really so affected by the situation, but of course disappointed at the moment in time.
And the wins at Alton Park, how did they feel? Because they were the first ones for the new V4 in the championship as well.
Yeah, it was good. Obviously, I felt good at the time. What was particularly interesting for me was how I felt with the bike. It was the first time I kind of really got a true understanding of where the bike's strengths were and what we could possibly get out of it during the season. So it was kind of like not only just good for that weekend and the win, but it kind of opened up the potential of what the season could bring and how competitive we could be as a team or rider and bike combination.
And the last time we were at Brands Hatch, you did the double, and it's been a good circuit for you in the past. What do you think that's down to? Do you think it's just how it's fallen on that weekend? Is it because it's a circuit where you naturally feel more comfortable with your style? What do you think that's down to?
Often how things fall on a weekend do have quite a big impact on the results, but more consistently, I'd say that the track has a lot of. It's kind of like quite a technical track. It can be difficult to, one, set a good lap time, and then two, be consistently able to repeat those lap times. It's quite difficult. Physically, it's quite up there. It's not the hardest one, but it is quite physical around here. But the track is quite technical, so I think having experience at the circuit certainly helps for the results.
Thruxton and Cadwell, the momentum seemed to swing a little bit in your favour. What do you think that was down to? Do you think that was where you'd got to grips with the Ducati and you felt that those were circuits where it worked particularly well, or did you just feel that was where it all come together on those weekends?
Yeah, I think it's hard to sort of. I'd have to sort of recap round by round and be specific to the details, but a few of those points have been just how things have fell on that weekend. Because if it wasn't me winning, it was either Scott or Tommy having a good performance. So I don't think it's really specifically to the bike, but possibly to personal setup, because often the major difference with the bikes is personal adjustments and setups and things that suit the rider specifically. So when you go from circuit to circuit, these circumstances change, and some weekends it works well for you, and others it's more difficult.
You've had consistent podium finishes in the Showdown. What was your expectation versus the reality of the opening 2 rounds of the Showdown?
I'm quite disappointed with the results, but it's hard when you feel like you did a good job personally. It's difficult to find what you could have dug deeper or found inner strength, did something better yourself to improve the final result, and it's difficult to say where I could have actually done something different or better, but I can't say that I'm actually pleased with the results. But even that, I've had interviews through different media channels and said that under normal circumstances, most people would say that a second and a third, for example, at Donington in British Championship level is a good result. You should be able to be pleased with that. But when the person you're trying to beat to the championship got 2 wins, it doesn't look so good anymore. So that's the reality that I'm facing, is that even when my results are under normal circumstances good, strong finishes, it's all brought into perspective when I have to actually win races and continue consistently be ahead of Scott to affect the points difference.
And the final 3 races are coming up this weekend. You've been in the position before, leading the championship going into the final round and being in the position to fight for the championship at the last round. You always say you go out to win races. How do you deal with the circumstances of those weekends, and how do you treat it in those situations?
When you're racing, often the circumstances aren't effective to what's going to happen on track. Once you put the visor down, as we say, and you head off, it's kind of like you put the same effort and physical effort, mental effort into the race, irrespective of what the significance of that race has. So majority of the change and the effect and the build up and everything is the fact it is in the times between sessions and before and after races. When you're actually on the bike, you always sort of have the similar mindset and similar emotions that you go through. So once you're actually on the bike, you can't really do anything different, because you have what you've got. You can't change it, and in some ways it wouldn't be practical to change anyway, because it's how you do things that brought you to this position. So making a change wouldn't potentially be of any value. So it's the pressure and the build up and the change of atmosphere is more in the people, in the press, in the media, in the paddock, in the pit lane. It's not so much what we do as athletes on the track.
And finally, how would you sum up the 2019 Bennetts BSB season up until this point?
For me, it's been a series of ups and downs. I seem to go from one weekend to the next, and one's a massive success, and the next one's what's sometimes a disappointment. So it's been a wave of ups and downs for me this year.